Good morning, guys. It is, I don't know, 7 something in the morning. It's early. And I'm just trying to lose weight so I can be in shape with my 2 energetic boys. One is a preteen, the other one is 5. So they're very energetic. And I didn't realize how energetic boys were or are because I wasn't prepared for that life. I used to work with kids, and both kids, boy and girl, were energetic at the age of 5. I'll say by the time they're like my son's age, 12, 13, 14, they're energetic, but they care about video games. If it's a boy, they care about video games. Still getting on their little brother's nerve, or their little brother's getting on their nerve. But they're still very energetic. They both like to play fight, and it lets me know that I need to be in shape with them. I can't be weak and slow. Not having any energy to run, to walk up a hill, or whatever. So I need to get up every morning and walk for like 30 to 40 minutes up a hill, as I'm doing right now, before I lose my breath, so that I can be under or at least 200 pounds. I'm at 234 right now, and the last time I seen 200, it was a little before my oldest son was born. Hold on, I'm out of breath. Okay, so sorry. Whenever I'm walking up this hill, I'm forever out of breath. But that's the reason why I'm doing this, so that I can just not be out of breath, and my body can get used to walking up hills, walking upstairs, running. Yeah, so I'm just trying to get myself into decent shape. But, excuse me. Like I said, I gear my channel to historical information from the past of the Americas, those who were described as the Americans. I think a lot of Black Americans forgot who they are, forgot where they come from, or a lot of us don't know where we come from. Some people, families don't talk much. So if if your family don't talk much, you're not going to know much information about your family, your roots, your lineage, the family tree, whatever you want to call it, your ancestors. You're not going to know much about them. And for me, I've been on this genealogy journey for about 3 to 4 years, maybe 3 to 4. I started understanding and reading more about Black Americans, West Indians, South Americans, Canadians, those of the copper, Negroid background, that a lot of our people were reclassified due to the United States government. And a lot of people can't see that. They can't believe that. They've never heard of that. Why would anyone want to reclassify Black people? Well, There's a lot of history to that. A lot of history to it. There's a lot of information to it. Because, see, we were only told that we were slaves. We come from slaves, and that's it. That's all we are. That's all we'll ever be. But I grew up, as well as a lot of other so-called black people, black Americans, grew up knowing a little bit more information than, oh, we were just slaves. And, that never really sat well with me. I don't know why that never sat well with me because, well, I do know why, but one of the reasons why that never sat well with me is because I've had older adults, as I was a child, older adults tell me, we come from king and queens, and we come from a greater, higher power of ancestral roots. And I'm not too sure what that meant back then. All I know is that I was told that we come from king and queens, and that's it. So if you come from king and queens, how could you be slaves? Right? When you hear the word slave, you automatically think someone being forced to do something that they don't want to do. So that never sat well with me. And then during school, from at least first grade to a little bit of high school, they would make us watch videos. Boston public school system would make us watch videos of black Americans being hosed down, looking torn up, being hung from trees, being bit by dogs. This is all from the 60s, and then they would go a little further back, 50, 40, 30s, late 1800s, making us look like we were nothing. We didn't come from anything great. We didn't have a great life. All we did was struggle. So my husband put me on to this YouTuber. And this YouTuber was putting information out about so-called black Americans in the past being called Indians. And, I'm like, okay, yeah, I remember, all of us would say, a lot of us would say, yeah, my grandmother, my grandfather said we're Indian. My grandfather would say we're this. My grandmother would say we were that. And, most of us believed it. Most of us would just ignore it because it's like, well, they said they killed off all the Indians, so how can we be Indians, right? Well, that's what they said. School systems, movies, TV shows, they would make little jokes, have little documentaries about Indians being gone, being wiped away. And what I noticed is the school systems, whenever they would talk about Indians, they would show so-called white people or Asians. And we know that a lot of white people, Europeans, came to the United States. Now, unless someone in your family got married to an Indian, or someone in your family impregnated an Indian, then that will qualify you as an Indian, whatever, if that's what you want to base it off of. So I did my research. Okay, sorry. I have to walk up the hill again. So I started doing my research, and I'm listening to this YouTuber. Now, the average YouTuber or content creator, whatever you want to call them, when they get online, if they post anything that they want people to know the truth of, they're going to post documents. They're going to post videos from the past. They're going to post something from the United States government if it's about over here. So this particular YouTuber was doing that about 5-6 years ago when I started listening to him. And he inspired me or motivated me. I think he motivated a lot of people, but some people probably won't give him any credit, but I'll give him credit. Caramel inspired me to continue to do my research or start my research on my family. Again, I only knew certain parts of my family, certain parts of my bloodline. I did not know all sides, like great-grandparents. Both my parents are still alive, and some of them know some information. Like my mom might know a little, my dad might know a little. So some of the information that they know was the information that was passed down to me. So I used that information and just decided to do a little membership with Ancestry.com. And there's another one, AmericanAncestors.org. I think that's the other one. So, the first thing you do is look up your grandparents. If you got their first and last name and date of birth, and the year they died, that's how you kick off the ancestral records. And once you do that, the website will then start pulling information of possible relatives, meaning sisters and brothers of your grandmother and grandfather on both sides. Then it'll start pulling up their parents. Then it'll start pulling up their parents. Then it'll just keep going and going. The problem is with Ancestry.com or any ancestral website you use for records, names are repeated. First and last names are repeated. So you might come across another Chanel. You might come across another Joseph with the same first and last name. So you just gotta dig deeper. So far for my families, on my mom's side, my dad's side, I've gotten up to at least the late 1700s. And this was about the year I got up to. It's about a little after the so-called Revolutionary War in the United States. And that's what got me thinking. Because you have dates, and with those dates you have stories, and you have to try to match up that information with the information of what your grandparents were living or what they were doing at that time. A lot of us don't know what our grandparents were doing when they were teenagers. Some of us don't even know our great-grandparents. So with research, you come across documentation letting you know that your family wasn't really poor. They weren't poor. They were getting money. They were definitely feeding themselves because census records were collected. They wanted to know who was in this country, what street they lived on, who lived with them, what type of jobs they had. Do they own their house? Do they have land? All of this information is on a census record. And I think they started collecting the census record around early 1800s, I think. I'm not too sure. But those are the questions that they would ask. And there was only particular people in this country that they were asking. And you would see it. You see black and white. Black and white. And when you've seen black and white, you've seen where the so-called white people were coming from. You seen them coming from Germany. You seen them coming from Ireland. You seen them coming from Poland, Turkey, Lithuania, Sweden. Like all these places all over the world they were coming from. But the black people, the black Americans, you will only see them coming from state to state. They kept moving around. Some of them stayed in that particular city or state for years, died in that state. Others, their grandkids or their kids would move. You didn't really see too many black Americans come from another continent or country. So that started making me wonder and think, okay, well, if they were already here, when did they, who was giving them the term black? So we know that the Europeans did a lot of reclassification of words, identification of words, and they did a lot. It's not to say that the Americans were dumb or anything. They just followed along with them. And a lot of people were smart back then, 1700s. They were very smart to the point that they would fight. And some of them died trying to prove who they were, trying to make sure their families don't get taken advantage of. And that's still happening to this day. That is still happening to this day. We have people such as myself, my husband, and other so-called black Americans doing their research and making sure other so-called black Americans and even so-called white people know the truth. See, I don't understand how y'all like the term white American. I find that really offensive, but we'll dig into that topic another time. But yeah, so you do your research, you study, and you find out that we were reclassified. When they were coming over here, they were calling us all different types of names that now would be considered offensive. But we weren't the only ones being called Indians. Black Americans weren't the only people being called Indians. It was so-called black people in the Americas that were being called Indians. And they had different tribal names to the name of their tribe. And then eventually, now you know them as Brazilian. You know them as someone from Barbados, a Bayesian, a Trinidadian, a Dominican, a Haitian. And then you know the copper-colored people over here as a black American. We had names. Just, our families at some point let the United States government be the ones who identify us. And we just went along with it. A lot of us had always said we're Indians. We come from an Indian. And then sometimes you hear someone say, oh, I'm Indian and black. Where's black land? There's no black land. Black land is where you are, where your family is from. And they weren't called black in the 1600s. They had a different name, and it kept changing. Every decade or so, it kept changing. We went from Indian to slave to color to Negro to Black American to African American, and then interchangeably between Black American and African American. People think they're being politically correct by calling us African American. We're not African. A lot of us our roots may have come from certain parts of Africa, but that would not, we still wouldn't be called African. Most Africans call themselves by whatever country or tribe they're from. So yeah, just do your research, get to know who your people are. You're more than a Black American. Bye.